It's a great honor to welcome our speaker today. On behalf of the CELEFE team, we sincerely thank Maricarmen for her generosity and in sharing her time and knowledge with us. So let me read just a few words from her impressive resume. Maricarmen Guerrero holds an MA in English language teaching and a PhD in English language teaching and applied linguistics from the University of Warwick, and she's currently in EAP teaching fellow at the University of Birmingham. She has vast experience in the fields of ESP and EAP and combines extensive teaching and research expertise with a strong dedication to applied linguistics and language pedagogy. Her work is particularly focused on integrating ESP methodologies, critical pedagogy, and learning technologies to empower learners' linguistics and digital literacy skills, as well as their critical thinking. Guided by the principles of dialogic and inclusive teaching, she designs immersive learning experiences that connect language competence with practical and academic use. So it's my pleasure to yield the floor to Maricarmen Guerrero, so please welcome her.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bernarda.
Welcome.
Well, I would like to start. I'm just going to say a few words in Spanish and then I will switch to English. Porque tengo una serie de agradecimientos que hacer. Bueno, en primer lugar, a la Universidad Nacional de Tucumán, a la Facultad de Ciencias Exactas y Tecnología, por supuesto al equipo de CELEFE y en particular a Jorge y Bernarda por darme la oportunidad y crear este espacio para poder compartir esta información con otros colegas en Argentina y en distintas partes del mundo cuando puedan ver la grabación o si se encuentran con nosotros en la sesión del día de hoy. Y también quisiera agradecer a Victoria Raffin, quien, digamos, fue el punto de contacto entre Bernarda, Jorge y mi persona, y gracias a ella estamos también llevando a cabo esta sesión el día de hoy. So now, let me see if I can share my slides. Please do let me know if you can see them once I share them. Okay, can you see them? Alicia?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to start talking about the webinar title. As you can see, and maybe when you saw the promotion of the event, the title is Architects of Meaning, from Text Decoding to AI-Assisted Deconstruction. So the architects of meaning are supposed to be our students. So what I will be doing today is presenting a framework that centers the student as the main creator of meaning or the main interactant with the information they receive from texts. So the content of this webinar can be applicable to courses of EAP, ESP, EOP, but also general English. So in the case when you see me talking about academic English, try to think about your own context and the modules that you teach. So in the case of the second part, the subtitle, from text decoding to AI-assisted deconstruction, the idea of this is that AI is used as an assistant to, in a way, study the text, and taking away the role of the students from decoding or understanding every single word and every single term, and actually getting to a general comprehension of the most important arguments and ideas of the text. So that is the reason why I titled this webinar like this. The session overview, I expect us to accomplish by the end of the session, or being able to acknowledge the benefits and the affordances of AI, combined with the appraisal theory that I will be describing in a few minutes, and with an approach to critical thinking for the promotion of reading comprehension at the different levels. But also, I want us to think about the different ways we can adapt the activities that I will present in today, how we can recycle them, adapt them to our classroom context and to our students' needs, and obviously applying the principles of differentiation if needed. So we will be going through different steps. We will start with, let me activate the laser pointer. We will start with the discussion of different current reading comprehension challenges, going through the pillars of the architectural meaning framework, and if possible, summarizing the framework components at the end of the session. Now, let's start with the current reading comprehension challenges. These are challenges I've identified with my students in the last maybe couple of years since the use of AI became a boom and in a way became famous and well used or well known actually. But also I use these challenges in a pilot webinar I did with this exact same content with some colleagues. So some of the challenges were related to the students having a difficulty to identify not just the general idea of the text, but also the main argument of the text, because they tend to, in a way, select supporting details that are not that useful instead of identifying the main argument that the authors are trying to transmit, possibly in a journal article. Another problem or another challenge is the reliance on AI, especially for summarizing the text. Clearly, when they rely on AI, when they are not trained or AI is not considered an academic skill that needs to be mastered, students can make the mistake or can have the difficulty of identifying the main arguments, but also they are not exercising their own critical thinking and they are not evaluating, they are not transferring the knowledge of the articles they are reading to the real world. They are not identifying the gaps in the information that they are reading or to what context the information is applicable. Another problem has to do with memorization, and this is mainly when they need to discuss the information of an article. It could be a journal article. Instead of engaging themselves with the information they are reading, and as I said, applying their critical and analytical thinking skills, they tend to memorize the information. So the discussion stays at a basic level or a literal level of reading because they are not inferring information and they are not evaluating the information. Obviously, all of these challenges can also affect the student identity. And reading as an academic literacy can become an identity issue. Why? As I said to you, I'm talking from my experience as an EAP, English for Academic Pursuit. And in the academic context, reading is an important skill, and even it constitutes the master of the status because it gives the students the capacity or the importance or the characterization that they know the information in their disciplines and they are able to discern important details from the non-important ones. So when they are not able to read or to understand the information from journal articles in their discipline, in a way, their knowledge is not fully developed because they do not have access to further information in their field, especially in the target language. When they are trying to read in English and English is not their mother tongue or a language that they do not master. So I'm going to take a break here and I would like you to type in the chat if you can think about any other current reading comprehension challenge, or which one of these that I'm showing you and that I just explained, you consider is the most important one in your teaching context. So take a few seconds, minutes to have a think about this, please. So which of these challenges is the most important for you, or the one that you see more frequently in your teaching context? The first three. Critical analysis. I'm reading some of the comments here. So I can see Pablo Jesus Garcia, he wrote the first three. Eugenia and Susana mentioned deep comprehension. Veronica said comprehension based on AI and criticality. Norma said number 4, reliance on AI, active engagement, critical analysis, deep comprehension, and active engagement with the information. Now, in that case, if it's deep comprehension, do you think it's because the students do not master the language, or it has to do with the mastery of the content of the text? Lack of interest. They would rather watch a video instead of reading. Both, the mastery of the language. Right. So in the case of Spanish, and I can tell you about my experience in Venezuela, students, when the undergraduate students, when they got to take Inglés Instrumental, which is the name of the module, they were supposed to know general English. And obviously, when they know general English is an advantage because they can, in a way, try to use the skills they have in the language and understand the information from the text. Although, when we talk about discipline and specific texts that contain technical terms and terminology, is different, but when they know general English, in a way, they master the structure of the language, especially in terms of grammar, and they might be able to identify what a noun is. However, if they have difficulties in their mother tongue, like in the case of Spanish, and they don't know how to identify a noun or a verb, in Spanish is very much difficult. They are able to identify that in a text. So that is why with this framework, I'm trying to, in a way, integrate AI for the analysis of the language. The students can get instructed about the language, but move to another level of comprehension, which is inferential and evaluative. So let's continue over here. So the question now would be, how can we address these current reading comprehension challenges? And in my research, the research I did to put together this framework, I came up with the idea of the architectural meaning framework to refer to the deconstruction of the text. So as you can see at the center, which is the main perspective I'm using to look at reading comprehension, is academic literacy. So this is like the main perspective, the umbrella. And under that umbrella, I added other pillars. For example, the reading comprehension taxonomy that has to do with the levels that we know of reading comprehension. Then I added the use of AI, but also as an academic skill that in which the students need to be trained. Sometimes we think that as our students are young, they are digital natives, they can know how to use AI. However, they may know how to use the buttons, how to use the specific steps to use AI, but not how to use it ethically and appropriately to their own benefit, or to get a general understanding of information instead of using it to do the work for them. Another pillar is critical thinking, an approach to critical thinking from the lens of identity. And the other pillar is the appraisal framework, which has to do with the use of language and how the authors use language to convey meaning. So as I said, academic literacy is the lens that I use to create this framework and to look at reading comprehension. So academic literacy is an approach for teaching in which the important element or the focus is under the disciplines of the students or the needs of the students in relation to their discipline. So the focus is the institutional nature of what counts as knowledge. As we're talking about academic contexts, and we're talking about students that belong to a specific discipline, each discipline has their specific way of look at knowledge. It could be quantitative, it could be qualitative. There are specific concepts and specific theories. So that is the focus of academic literacy, to look at reading comprehension depending on the student's discipline. When we do that, and we consider the nature of knowledge, we also need to consider the genre of each discipline. So I'm going to give you the example of education. In education, we have reflective pieces or reflective articles, which is valid. Those are articles that are published in recognized journals. However, reflective articles are not so common on hard sciences, for example, civil engineering, mechanical engineering. And that's where we get the epistemology, again, the nature of knowledge, the identity, power, and authority. What is considered an authority of knowledge in each student's discipline? Where do they publish? When is it considered an important piece of information in their discipline? How is it supported? And that is the part of the context of reading comprehension through the lens of academic literacy. Also, the purpose is the meaning-making practices. As I said to you, the title of this webinar is Architects of Meaning. And the idea is to center the development of reading comprehension on the students, because they are the ones that are creating meaning or are interacting with the articles and the information. Once they develop those skills in our modules, they will be able to do it independently. Or we can promote it since the first time they enter our classrooms. So the teaching method here, it has to be explicit. We need to teach different reading strategies explicitly. And in the case of AI, how to use AI to promote reading comprehension and the different levels of reading comprehension. It has to be reflective, as the students have to be metacognitively competent. They need to be able to reflect on the strategies they are using. They need to be able to reflect on the genre of the text and decide which strategies are the best to apply according to the purpose they are trying to accomplish as well when reading a text. And this is a recursive practice. We cannot consider that the development of reading is a linear path. Is actually, in the case of the reading comprehension levels, we cannot say that students start with a literal level. No, it depends on the purpose of the text, and it depends on the purpose of the students for reading the text and on the genre. So the different levels are present in any circumstance. So I would like to explain to you a little bit about the pillars of the architectural meaning framework. So as I said to you, I already discussed the main lens or the main perspective of this framework through academic literacy. The reading comprehension taxonomy of Barrett is something that is present in the tasks that I design and that I will show to you in a minute. So the levels of reading comprehension, as I said, we have literal, when the students understand the information as it is written. Inferential, when they go beyond what is written and understand the implicit meaning that the author is trying to convey. And the evaluative and appreciation has to do with the critical level. So they are able to assess the information, they are able to give their opinion, to compare the information with other sources. That is in the case of synthesizing, when they are able to compare the knowledge that is out there in their discipline. Now, as I said to you, another pillar is the use of AI as an academic skill. So for the tasks I designed, I was having in mind the flaws of using AI. And AI has problems with hallucination. So it means that sometimes information, the output that we get from AI, may not be completely accurate. Also, the information AI gives lacks contextual cues. So AI, as it is a machine, has no knowledge of the context of the information they are providing. And another con is that the use of the reliance on AI to summarize information. And as we said before, one of the challenges is that they cannot identify the main arguments or analyze, be analytical about the information. So in the activities, the different activities, we could use them to scaffold vocabulary if we want our students to learn the language. We can also provide peer analysis and discussion about the outputs that the students obtain through AI. They could compare the sources, as I said before, and be critical about AI outputs, which is one of the key elements of using AI. Critical thinking, well, as I said to you before, the selection of the text for this task has to consider the identity of the students. If the students, but in relation to their discipline, if the students are from education, from mechanical engineering, I would say that in the case of education, we have a wider range of genre because we could also select texts that are more critical. And we could consider the background of the students. If we have students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, or if we have students from different countries, so they can look at the text from their own position in society and their own background. And of course, critical thinking as well is applied for the evaluation of the results they obtain when using AI, whether to question, compare sources, or check any bias or omission and misinterpretation. And we also have another pillar is the appraisal framework, which is also present in all of the levels. And I will show you the tasks in a minute. So the appraisal framework has to do with the use of the language. When the authors try to express their attitude towards the topic they are discussing in their articles, whether they express the effect they have towards the topic, how they are judging the topic, or how they appreciate the topic, if it's a positive or negative stance. The engagement, how the authors of the articles are using other sources to support their ideas, or if they are just claiming information without support, or if they present counter arguments to their own views. That is one way students can be critical about the information. And graduation has to do as well with the attitude of the author to present the information, the kind of hedging that they use, the type of quantifiers they use, how they graduate the way they emit views in their articles. So before I show you the tasks, I would like to know if you have any questions or any comments about what I've been saying so far. Jorge, Bernarda, Alice, any questions or comments?
I think no questions.
Okay, so we're okay so far.
No questions, but I have one. I don't know if I can make a question there.
Why not?
Just a comment there. I loved this idea of using AI as an academic skill, like developing an academic skill through AI, right? And this is connected to what you're presenting today, right?
Yes. Yeah, so students will be, well, through the activities, the idea is that they practice their reading comprehension, but at the same time, they know how to use AI to promote their own comprehension without just receiving the answer or over-relying on the information AI gives. Did I answer your question, Jorge?
Yes, thank you. I can
There's
see
a
it's
question
clear.
from Vero in the chat. She says, would you mention the pillars to the students?
I wouldn't, although in the task, I use some of the names in relation to the pillars, but just to guide myself as a teacher. But the students do not know they do not need to know these because they are not English teachers. And the idea is that they develop their reading comprehension skill as an academic literacy and the use of AI as well as an academic skill implicitly without them knowing about that. Because what we care about is the development of the skill rather than the use of meta language related to education or linguistics. Of course, if the students are from education, that's an advantage because we are teachers and we can use some of the language and the terms that we know with them. But if they are, like say, future mechanical engineers, no, they do not know to know this language or the pillars.
Yes.
Right. So I'm going to continue. Now, the activity I will show you is based on this article. So let's suppose that you're trying to adapt the activities I will show you, and you will need to select the article. Once again, try to think about your student's identity when choosing the information, because that could promote discussion. Maybe if the students are, let's say, in the third semester of their career, think about the modules that they have studied before or the modules that they are studying in that period, in that term. So you could select information that the students are in a way studying, that is current for them, that they could be able to discuss or to identify some of the words and terms that are present in the text. Also consider the level of your students. In this case, I chose a text for education. This is the field, education, and the level of the students is C1 according to the Common European Framework. So the genre here is very much related to the field of education because this is a reflective article. And you can see, I put in bold letters some of the phrases. I am convinced that AI should not be feared by teachers or students. I propose we accept the challenge once again to yada, yada, yada. I will add that we have an ethical responsibility. So with this genre, it's in a way easier to identify the attitude, the engagement of the author as well, and the way the author is trying to graduate the information. So this author is being very straightforward, should not be feared, for example. So I use this text to design the following activities. So I'm going to stop sharing the slides so I can share a document. Just give me a few minutes. We got it here. Please let me know if you can see the document. Alicia?
No, yes, now we can see it.
Okay.
Now it is.
Great, perfect. Thank you very much. So in these handouts, obviously the students will have the text in the first page, but then we start with task 1. This is the literal level. In case you feel your students need to apply that level because they do not know the language that much, which is usually the case in South America, you could use these activities. So here, I provide the prompt that the students can use in a Gen AI tool. Could be Gemini, Copilot, Claude, Perplexity, or any other AI tool. They will need to use this prompt because they may obtain information that is different to the one that you want them to read and to get. So even when using this prompt with different AI tools, they can get different results, different outputs. So it's better if you provide the prompt. And here, in this way, you are implicitly teaching the students how to use a good prompt as well with AI. Once they use that, they will obtain an output. And the idea of this literal level is that they answer these questions in group. For example, with the technical vocabulary used, what do you think the author is discussing in the text? So basically using prediction as a strategy. What are the most used nouns? Do they refer to people, things, or abstract ideas? What are the most used tenses? What does this tell you about the currency of the content? So this has to do with the literal level. You could also, depending on the AI output, which has to do with language, you can use that to study the parts of the speech of the words as well to cover language, especially for students that struggle with English at the university level. Task 2 has to do with the inferential level. And in here, we have what I said to you about the pillar from engagement, attitude, and the use of hedging language. So in this case, the pillar has to do with the appraisal framework. So in group 1, if you decide to do this in groups, group 1 will cover the attitude pillar. Again, we have the prompt. And the questions the students need to answer has to do to assess the output given by AI and to discuss the questions about the author's stance. Is it positive or is it negative? What does this tell you about the author's positioning towards the topic? You can also create a specific question. In the case of my text, which is related to the use of AI in teaching, the author uses best practice pedagogies. So what criteria does the author use to determine that? And in a way, they are questioning the author's ideas. So we have there the level of criticality. And if they assess AI, they are also using their critical thinking. The engagement pillar, we've got the prompt, and again, questions for them to exercise their inferential and critical level. For example, are there any external sources cited? Why not? How are they presented? Is the author agreeing with the sources, or is the author using them as counter arguments to their points? The graduation pillar, once again, the prompt, and we've got questions such as, where exactly is the author turning the volume up when they talk about a problem or when they talk about a solution? Is the argument based on facts or just loud language to convince you? Is the author supporting their ideas with other sources? If not, it's just a piece of opinion. It's not based on actual research. And finally, the critical level. Do you think this is an appropriate academic text? Whose voice is the text missing, especially if it's critical? What lesson can you apply to challenge a community? And so on. And I added other activities for further reading or extension activities that students can do as homework. And you will have access to this once Bernarda and Jorge send you the material. So I'm going to stop sharing this. And I should start concluding now. So I'm going to finally share slides again. So the summary of the framework. So we have three main factors in this framework. The human factor, that we have the student, who are the ones creating or making the meaning through their interaction with the text. They are also assessing AI output and being strategic and evaluative through when assessing the output. In the case of the teacher, obviously the teacher selects the text according to the level of the students, the identity of the students, but also grades the text according to the level of the students, and monitors the use of AI by adding questions, critical questions or inferential questions, and gives students the prompt and how to adapt the prompt. So in that case, the students will know how to use AI as well. The material factor, here I added the academic text, as I mentioned, the Common European Framework. There is a page that can help you know the level of the text that you're using, and it's called textinspector.com. Also, if you want to know the genres that are available in your students' disciplines, you can also use a book, which is called Genres Across Disciplines. Generative AI is also a material factor that works as a junior linguistic analyst, because the analysis of the language is done through AI, and students will have to do the inferential analysis and the critical analysis. And of course, the prompts, as I said to you before. The regulatory factor, human in the loop, it means the students and the teachers. The guide to use AI, the prompts and the teacher monitoring. The assessment of AI outputs, that is in charge of the students as well as the teachers when discussing the questions. And inferential and critical questions. So this is food for thought. And you can think about it and reflect at home. How would you adapt this framework to your teaching context? And what I mean by teaching context is your students' needs, discipline, and identity. We've got some references, and this is all I wanted to present to you. I hope you have found it useful, and I'm just wondering if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Maricarmen, so much for your presentation. I loved the framework. I think it is, before you ask the question whether we can actually apply this to our context, I was actually thinking how applicable your framework is, right? It is simple, but complete and applicable. Yes, I don't know if if we have any questions here in the comments. You can also use your mics, people, if you have questions or comments.
Maricarmen,
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you. Well, I guess you already tried this, right? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, I've
Okay, and
tried
what
it.
about
Yeah.
the outcomes? What about students' reactions to this approach?
Well, they still struggle with the language because as I've been teaching language before and nowadays as well, their focus is on learning English and they forget about the academic skill. And the fact is that you may know the language, but you may not master the academic skills, which has to do with being critical, being able to synthesize information, being able to find a gap in the literature, and also being critical about the use of AI and how to use it. So they still struggle with the language. However, I do use it, as I said to you, in the inferential level. We take the output as an example to cover word forms, the parts of a speech.
Yeah.
And we may take some of the sentences to analyze the sentences, and that would be to cover the language. But I do want them to move beyond that decoding phase when they get stuck with the language. And if I don't understand this word, then I cannot understand the meaning of a particular paragraph. I do want them to move beyond that phase and work with the skills that they have available at whatever level they are.
That's nice.
I don't know if I
Good.
explained.
Somehow we have to find the balance, right?
Yeah. So we have to be also very careful. I do like the concept and the theory of identity because, as I was telling you, you have to think about the identity of the students so that they can engage with the text that they are reading. And I think one of the challenges that you mentioned, some of you mentioned in the chat, had to do with engagement. So I'm going to give you an example in the case of education, because I've worked with education students. If you present to them the access to education from averaging communities, if you have a student that comes from that community, for sure that student is going to engage with that information because it affects them directly. So they are able to be more interested in what they are reading, and they can relate that theory to what their life is. And they could say, well, this information is just favoring one side of the discussion, so they can engage a bit more. So yeah, I don't know if I went sideways with this straight away from the main question.
Good. I loved this idea because you emphasized this idea of identity, disciplinary identity, and I found it very interesting, right? You actually also focus on that as well. And I think this is part of this genre approach in a way, right? Well, we have some comments here before we go on. Soledad Dutra asks, sorry?
Soledad made a question.
Yes.
Where can we read to deepen into this framework? And have you written anything about it?
I haven't written anything. Well, I've written other types of information. This framework is relatively new. When I started reading about the different pillars and combining all of these under one umbrella of academic literacy. Hopefully, this could be the starting point to write the article related to this framework.
You have homework then.
I've got homework, yes. But sometimes I prefer I like to elaborate material and to present rather than writing. That is my case, but I also know that I need to start writing. It's in my to-do list. Sorry,
Okay,
I think the question had a second part.
Yes, we have a second part here. It is actually by Candela Noguera Angel. Thank you very much. I think it is a very interesting perspective on how to integrate AI into the classroom so that the students see it as a tool rather than a way out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
I think somebody was
Pablo,
asking about sorry.
Sorry?
Pablo is asking if AI is welcome during evaluation.
Ooh, well, that depends on the institution.
Mm.
That depends on the institution and the type of evaluation. So I can tell you about my experience here in the UK. The students need to have seminar discussions, and for the seminar discussions, they need to read the articles in advance. It could be 1, 2, 3 articles. If they know how to use these prompts, they could help themselves to be able to analyze information and using the questions as well that I showed you. They could prepare themselves for the seminar discussion. So in a way, AI would be present in the discussion. Now, if it's, let's say, a reading comprehension test that is in the classroom, but that is something that needs to be determined by the institution and even the academic department about the use of AI, what is accepted and what is not accepted.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. We have some other question here by Marcela Mora. Or it's rather a comment. A really interesting presentation. In my case, it would be a real challenge to make my students answer the questions by themselves instead of asking AI.
Yeah.
You showed way to integrate this actually, right?
Yeah. But in that case, for Marcela, maybe you can divide the task. For example, you can ask the students to use the prompts at home and obtain the information and ask them to bring the outputs to the lesson. And then in the lesson, you give them the questions and ask them not to use any device and concentrate in answering the questions in a group. And if they use different AI tools, they could even compare their outputs. So you could adapt the activities depending on what you're going to do in the session. Maybe that could help. I don't know.
Very nice. That's a wonderful idea, Susana Company. Good. Sorry, before we go on, Alice is going to share the QR for the survey. Is that true?
Yes, I'm going to share both again, the link to the attendance and the survey.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So you need to share the okay. Are you going to share the screen, Alice?
I can share the screen as well, yes.
Okay, good. So going back to the presentation, I don't know if there's any other comment. You can use your mics, people, as well.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Vanina from Mendoza. Yeah, when you talk about artificial intelligence, you ask the students to work with the free version or they can use the one that is paid because it's not the same.
Yeah, they can use a free version. If they have Gemini, if they use Gemini, they can use their Google account. So usually nowadays, if you have a smartphone, you need to have like a Gmail account most of the time. So Gmail, Gemini is free. If the students work by any chance with Microsoft, and if they have a Microsoft with the university, they also have access to Copilot. Copilot, it's an add-on to Microsoft. In the case of Perplexity, I think there is a free version as well with Perplexity. So they could use that one as well. So there are many different tools, and they can use, at least I know that Gemini, Copilot, and Perplexity do have basic free versions.
Good. Now, I I was thinking that this framework can be applied, as you said at the beginning, to 4 skills courses as well as EAP or ESP courses, right?
General English as well.
Yes, general English, right. Yes. And well, perhaps we can expand it not just for reading, but for some other skills or objectives, right?
Yeah. For example, if you want them to develop the writing skill, through these activities, once they analyze the author's stance and they understand how the authors use the words to communicate their ideas, they could try to identify or replicate the activity in their writing. Obviously, identifying the type of genre, if it's an argumentative article or an argumentative text, and the students work with that text and they analyze that one, then they could try to replicate, to answer back to this article, and try to use the same genre as well, argumentative, because they are analyzing, they are deconstructing the text, and that is related to the genre as well.
Good.
So it could
Very
be a
nice
model.
ideas, Maricarmen. In your opinion, would you say that this part of the methodology, let's say, or rather content, because this is also content, has to be included in the syllabus of our courses? Because I see this as content as well as methodology, right? What's in your experience? What's the case in your experience?
Obviously, if there is a chance to include it in the syllabus, yes, great, that would be perfect. If not, it depends on the types of content that you teach. If you are teaching one of the reading strategies, like say inference, you can use the inferential level, the activity that I showed you that is for the inferential level in your lesson. It doesn't have to be all of the activities. You can adapt just one single section and relate that to one of the reading strategies that you're teaching your students.
Yes.
So you don't have to do a massive change in curriculum or syllabus.
Yes. Okay, yes. But I was thinking in the case that you want to develop the use of AI as an academic skill, and perhaps you want to cover this as content, but it has to do with institutional limitations and all that, of course, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Fernanda Irazabal says that she wants to read more about this. So, Maricarmen, this is a starting point for you to start writing about your framework, right?
Yes.
And we'll be honored.
Will do.
Yes, of course. You already have audience here, right? To read your future paper.
Yeah, I would like to say that this is like a very original framework I created exclusively for CELEFE. So I created this because I've been doing it, but putting together like this, the materials, the slides, I did the pilot webinar with other teachers. I had 10 attendees, and then I made the changes and now I'm presenting it to you. Also, if you want to continue reading about the different pillars and about academic literacy as a teaching approach, I've added at the end of the PowerPoint, the slides, a list of references as well, in case you want to continue reading about each area.
We're going to share those slides later on.
Good. Well, they are all thanking you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to reading your paper, your coming paper.
Yes, forthcoming, right?
Yes.
Coming soon.
Yes. Yeah, now I have that commitment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they are all thanking you. We want to thank you. I want to take 1 minute to thank Veronica because she was the one who introduced us to Maricarmen, who brought Maricarmen to us, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Vero, and for bringing us Maricarmen, very interesting colleague of us.
I knew you were going to love Maricarmen.
We do.
Sorry, Vero?
I knew you were going to love Maricarmen.
And you were right.
I knew that. I know.
She's been extremely generous with us.
Yes. And thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for allowing us to share the slides and the worksheets as well. Okay. Okay,
Thank you very
people,
much.
any further comments or questions? You are going to be hearing from us, actually reading from us on your emails with material, and the survey will be open up to Friday, right?
Yeah,
So please try
Friday
to
next
finish
week.
this as well.
next week.
Yeah, Friday next week.
Yes, next week.
Friday
Okay.
the 5th of June.
Okay. I think we are almost 3 minutes after our time. Yes. So we are, well, they're congratulating you all over the place. It seems they liked
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to your feedback as well, so I can make some improvements in the content and also the presentation.
Good. Good.
Okay, people.
Okay.
So thank you all for your presence, for being here. So many friends and colleagues, dear colleagues. So thank you, Maricarmen, again for your generosity, your time, and for sharing your insights. It's been really valuable.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
you.
thank you. Thank you all for being here then. Maricarmen, your time, your experience, your knowledge, they were all highly welcome, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
We
you.
hope to see you
colleagues,
soon
Have a good
again.
afternoon.
see you around.